Satnam, everyone, and Mabuhay. I am Reverend Reg, and today is May 12, 2021. And I'm so grateful that we have one of the best teachers about money and wealth consciousness. And it's such an amazing experience for me to have her this afternoon because a lot of global leaders actually have very generous things to say about her work. And while most of us experience fear and stress around money, a lot of people like me are not aware how much it's influencing our business or our jobs and anything with regard to finances, family life, and our and whatever it is that's impacting our personal and professional world. So, Sarah McCrum is a teacher and author who helps people create healthy relationships with money based on the principles of her book, Love Money, Money Loves Me, Loves You. And her work is founded on 30 years of personal practice, 22 years of training with Chinese masters, and 2 decades of coaching business owners and leaders. Over 10,000 people have joined her online courses about money. So, honestly, when I first was exposed to her work, the thing that I was most excited about was there's just this feeling of calm about Sarah, about her work, and when you talk to her, there's no hyping into the money topic or wealth consciousness. So I just feel relaxed when I talk to her, especially about all the money issues that are coming up when it comes to this subject. So without further ado, let me put on board Sarah MacRoom.
Hi, thank you
Welcome,
very much.
Sarah.
I love the fact that you call the
Welcome.
book Love Money, Money Loves Me. That was very nice.
Actually, Sarah, before you came up with the book, I also wrote a prayer compilation in my metaphysical ministry. And I have this 108 mala beads where we
Mhm.
affirm money is love and it creates greater good in the universe. Money is love and it creates greater good in the universe. Because we were trying to do away with the erroneous thinking that money is the source of all tension.
Yes, yes, and evil, often
Yeah,
seen as the
yeah,
source of all evil as well. Yes, absolutely.
yeah. And Sarah, I'm not sure if you heard what I mentioned earlier, but honestly, when I listened to the interview of Brandon Maslan and Jennifer Hill with you, there was such a soothing presence about you talking about this matter. And I know that I wasn't getting sold into the topic by another teacher. I mean, it's just so amazing because either people are so excited about it because I've also attended other seminars where I had to be excited as that was the workshop offered. And I think those workshops also have its place where we have to get excited about it, we have to affirm it, and we have to declare it. But with you, it's the first time I encountered a teacher talking about money who's just in this mode where it's cool, calm, and collected. So where did you get that vibration?
Oh, probably from many, many years of training. But I trained with Chinese masters for 22 years, and what we were learning was relaxation. So we were learning to be relaxed about everything. And then when I
Yeah.
started exploring more about money, I realized that actually getting excited about money isn't really that helpful. I noticed whenever I got excited about money, I pushed it away. It didn't come
Mm.
closer. And I noticed that whenever I got upset or tense or stressed about it, also
Mhm.
it didn't work very well. And my book showed me very clearly that being relaxed and calm about money is actually what works best. And so I really had to learn it.
Beautiful. And I'm not sure, Sarah, what you do with money demonstrations in your online courses, but somehow going over my personal research and journey about demonstrating money in the metaphysical sense was that first we put in our consciousness the awareness of money. So in my wallet, I have play money just to get out of the state of thinking that it's not there.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, is this something that we should continuously practice? Because obviously you have more experience than I do when it comes to demonstrating it from the invisible plane.
I think it's up to you, like what kinds of things you do. I don't teach things like that. I think plenty of
Mm-hmm.
people do. And really the point for me is, first of all, to understand what money really is. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where the book comes in. And you're obviously beginning to explore that. Like what is money really? Because we have terribly, terribly misunderstood what it is. When you start to understand what it is, you actually start to relax and you start to feel that you have a relationship with it. And you can ask yourself, do I have a good relationship or a bad relationship? It's like a marriage, if you like. And you can say, well, actually, I never speak to my partner. I don't even like to communicate with money, or maybe I actually really love money and I feel very comfortable with it. There are not many people who can say that. So when you have this understanding, you start to feel you have a relationship with it. And then you can think, okay, what kind of relationship would I like to have?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, so there are some people who'll keep a photo of their partner in their wallet. So maybe if you keep money in your wallet, it's rather like keeping a photo of your partner. I have never had a photo of my partner in my wallet. It's probably why I don't do that. But it's whatever works for you in the end. For me, what's important is the principles and the underlying understanding, because if you have that, you can figure out all the rest for yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So, what is the first step our viewers can actually take in terms of releasing all the tension and all the upset about money, especially if they've been heavily programmed about money being evil? It's a good thing that you mentioned it because, I come from a country where a lot of our indoctrination will because of religious
Yes.
upbringing as well. So it's become a cultural thing. The collective majority of the collective thinks that when you have a lot of money, you're all these sorts of negative things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
either people work very hard and then produce it but lose it anyway.
So I'd like to maybe just tell the story of how I started to learn something different about money, because that will help to answer your question. I had a business failure in 2010, which as a result of the recession that hit, the big global recession that hit in 2008. And my business failed, and it was a very painful and difficult time. And I had no money. It was the worst time for me financially in my whole life. And I was given a little book, and at the end of the chapters were questions. And one of the questions said, "What would money like to say to you?" So I sat down with my notebook and I started writing. Didn't really think that money would say anything to me. And my pen started writing completely on its own. And I was reading the words coming out of the end of my pen. And the first thing it said was, "I would like to tell you to love me." And then it went on and it started talking about all the things. It was saying, look, I want you to play with me and pay with me and invest me and take me and like do whatever you want with me, be free yourself up. And one of the things that it said, I wrote about 2 pages. It said, I am not the devil and I never have been. I'm here to connect human beings in their creativity. And it said, you're too afraid. You need to open up, open your heart and let me in. It was like saying, please, and the last thing it said was, don't wait, just take me. I will love you. And so it
Wow.
was so different and so surprising and so completely and utterly not what I had ever thought about money. And that was the beginning of my journey of realizing that money really is not, it just is not the devil, and it is not the source of evil, and it is not, people do bad things with it. Yes, people do bad things with nature. People do bad things with children, even the most innocent parts of society. That's
Mm.
people who do bad things. It's not money that causes people to do bad things. And so I think that's actually the first step, is to realize that money is, in fact, it's a part of life. It's very interesting because you're from a country that is so predominantly Christian, that actually,
Yes.
if you think about it, we always say God is love and we say God is everything. So money is
Yes.
part of everything, which means money is love. Money is a part of God and is a part of
Yes.
love. And that's the thing. I'm not actually saying anything that isn't really strangely enough, in the Bible. It's just that we've also learned a lot of things from Christianity about being poor, and that, you know, rich people can't go to heaven and things like that. So we have a lot of stories in our minds
Yes.
that get in the way of this deeper understanding of money.
For that answer, Sarah, and it's definitely helpful. And I just want to ask you, why did you trust that kind of still small voice where you had that prompting about money talking to you? Because for some people, if they get that kind of conversation, they're gonna think that they're going insane. But why did you trust your intuition?
Some of it was because I'd been training for a long time and learning a lot about energy. And I'd come across from time to time
Mm,
other people who could do things like that. So it wasn't completely strange to me. And I'd developed my intuition a lot over those years. And the other thing is that what I wrote in that message, which was a complete surprise to me, was so beautiful and it felt so true. It felt more true than my head, my mind, what I could have written myself. And when you come across something that resonates, that feels, it's just like, wow, this feels so much better than what I've believed before. It naturally brings a curiosity. So I wouldn't want to reject something that seems so true. So what I did instead was I said, I'm going to try again. And the next day I
wow.
tried again. And it said, the first thing it said is, you all need to relax about money. You have completely misunderstood what I am, even the very wealthy amongst you. And then it went on. And so I just started doing it every day because it was such a beautiful experience, actually. It just,
Mm.
everything I wrote was so surprising and kind of delightful and a relief and relaxing. And of course, like, you kind of want more of that.
Yeah, exactly. And Sarah, thank you for sharing that you want more of that, because another doctor of metaphysics whom I guested in the show, she was saying about the lightness of being, about being happy. And because you come from that orientation where it's a lot easier to accept the psychological benefit of being happy, of feeling delighted, of feeling good, you don't get into the loop of having to look for things to suffer for. Uh,
Well, I've been there. I know that place very well. But you know what I discovered? I
uh,
discovered that suffering doesn't work. We've been
yeah,
taught to suffer. And I discovered that it doesn't work, that it actually creates more suffering, not only for me, but if I'm suffering, everyone else around me suffers as well. Like, if
yeah.
I really realize that if I'm very angry, of course, that's pretty unpleasant for other people. But if I'm depressed and withdrawn, it's like I withdraw my light. I withdraw the essence of who I am from the people that I love. That is
Mhm,
also a way of sharing suffering. I don't think that we're
mhm.
here to share our suffering. I
Yeah,
think it's just a misunderstanding that has got grossly kind of
yeah.
overgrown. And it's time for us to realize that there's a better way of doing things.
I have to bring it to that topic because apparently one of the things that I always felt so uh, where I felt so free was actually doing what I love to do. But of course, like I was telling you earlier, for me, it's not enough that you're just doing what you love to do. Of course, you want to increase your self worth and your value for labor. You want to increase your income. So please educate us about it, because apparently this particular money topic and then the work that we do, it's so tied together. And how do we actually put it in a balanced perspective?
Yeah, you're right. They're so closely tied together, especially because most people work actually because they want to make money. That's their primary motivation, or
Yeah.
they need to make money. And then, of course, work is the primary way that we make money as well. We bring in an income. Um, I think that what's so important here is to understand, to get to know the relationship with money. So for me, work is about contribution. I would imagine that that's the case for you. And so the work that I do is the work that gives me joy, that is aligned with my sense of purpose. And I feel very lucky to be able to do that. And I realize that many people are having to work in order to pay bills for the family, and they don't have perhaps the freedom of choice, or at least they don't believe they have that freedom of choice that you and I have both given us. But the big challenge, as you know very well, is how to make money doing what you love. Because I think many of us have a belief that if I do what I love, I won't be able to make money. You just think of artists and creative people. They just have this expectation that they're never going to make money, and that they're going to suffer for their art, suffer poverty for their art. It's
Yeah.
like a worldwide tradition, I think. And many other people too, people who care, people who heal, people who help others, teachers, some of the most valuable people in society are also some of the most poorly paid. So how do we shift that around? The thing that I learned, and I learned this from my book, so I learned it from this voice of money that was speaking through me,
Mhm.
is that we need to learn how to ask for what we want. And we need to learn to value ourselves so that if you're doing what you love, you recognize that what you're doing is so valuable, and you're valuable, and you deserve to be paid, if you like just like anybody else. You're not
Yeah.
particularly special, but you also shouldn't be out of it. What you'll find is most people who do what they love, they actually are not very good at receiving. They're
Mhm.
very good
Mhm.
at giving, and they shut themselves off from receiving, and they think that somehow they think that maybe all they should ever do is give and serve. They don't really make the connection that to be able to serve really well, you actually need money to be flowing through your life, because otherwise you're always limited in what you can do. So I think we need to just look at our beliefs and our views about money and see that service without money doesn't work.
Yes.
Generosity to others without being generous to yourself is very limited and very limiting. If you're generous to yourself and you receive lots, just imagine how much you can give if you're a giver. But if it's like, oh, I'll give to you, but no, I'm not going to receive anything, that's so unfair, actually. It's
Yeah.
so
And
unfair on all the people who'd like to give to you.
yes, thank you for sharing that, Sarah. Actually, over time, I have been able to ask for the value of what I put into the marketplace. But the next step for me is to actually not getting affected when people start calling you names because you're asking for you know the cycle. You're now
Yeah.
upgrading your wealth consciousness of this deservability and worthiness. And then your circle sometimes would say, because I'm a metaphysical minister, that services like this, it comes from God. And somebody even mentioned before, I read something like, the tree would keep the water and the water just flows, and none of them would ask for money, something like that. So when you go through
Yes,
conversations
yes.
like that, other people feel that you're not sincere about your service. So where do we actually draw the line? Because I know it affects a lot of people as well.
Well, the first thing I would say, which I've already said and I'm going to say again, is that service comes from God, money comes from God also.
Oh,
Money wasn't created somewhere else. Everything else was created by God, but money was somehow in a different category, and God said, okay, we'll leave money to the devil. It's not like that. Money comes from God. Money is an aspect of God. So let's get that really clear. You can argue about it, but really and truly, God is everything. And I think we really need to get to grips with the fact that if from the God perspective, God is everything, and everything includes money. So
yes.
that's just a really, really important thing to get into your mind. And then the other piece is that all those people who give service and don't receive money for it, they all have to be taken care of by somebody. Somebody is paying for their food. Somebody is paying for their accommodation. You could be a nun or a monk. You can be a Buddhist monk begging for food on the street. Someone has to go and pay for that food to put in your bowl. You can be a monk meditating on a temple in somewhere. Somebody is bringing you food. Somebody is working somewhere to serve your service. So I think every one of us who's in service needs to realize that in order for me to be in service to other people are in service to me. And when I recognize that those other people they're having to engage with money on my behalf. So how about I'm willing to share that, and I'm going to engage with money too? It would be much easier to have people serve me, just bring me whatever I need, and I go and do my good works. But
Yeah.
I'm going to actually share that responsibility, and we all share the responsibility together, and we all make money, because money is what creates an economy, which is what takes care of children, takes care of poor people. Poor people are people who
Yes.
don't have money but need money. Who's going to take care of it? The people with money. So when we
Yes.
recognize that money is what we need, it doesn't have to be, making money doesn't have to be the purpose of your life. But for money to flow through your life will enable you to do your service. And without it, poor people will stay poor, children will continue to be hurt, wars will continue to be fought, and all the harm that we're trying to avoid through our service will get worse and worse and worse. So I think we really have to face the truth about money and stop telling stories to ourselves about what it really is.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. It's such a beautiful thing, that the flow that's coming out of you, and I truly appreciate it, because one of the things that I had to reconcile with myself was to really feel in every cell of my body that God is the source of my supply, and that God is everything, and that God is omnipresent supply. And
Yeah.
the thing about money, the reason why I appreciate having it around is because it raises the human dignity. You know, when you don't like a
Absolutely.
particular when you don't like the particular situation that you are in right now, you have the freedom to leave that particular situation and not be enslaved by the situation, because you're constantly thinking that it's the situation that's locking you up in that sad experience.
Yes.
So please tell us about the ease of demonstrating it, especially if we're just relaxed about it.
Well, money is a kind of energy. That's what it showed me. And energy flows through us more freely when we're relaxed. If you think about it, when you're tense, you tighten up. Your muscles contract. In Chinese medicine, we can say your meridians, your energy channels also contract. When you're contracted, not so much energy can flow through you. And so naturally, everything is more stressful, it's more tense. When you relax, more energy flows through you. And money really is a kind of energy that's represented in notes and coins and numbers and transactions and things. So it works on exactly the same principles. And so when you're able to relax, that's the first thing. One of the things that happens is it brings you more in touch with what I would call your soul's desires. It brings you in touch with who you really are, the essence of yourself. And it also brings you in touch with what you would love to experience in life, or what you'd love to contribute, what you'd love to create in your life. And those souls and soul desires and heart desires, they, excuse me, they have real power in our life.
Yeah.
It's like the energy of money responds to those. It doesn't respond so much to, oh, I should go to this very good university and get a degree so I can get a good job, so I can have a family and get a mortgage or whatever. Those are very heady wishes. They're not from the heart. But the
Mm-hmm.
energy of money really responds to what's going on in our heart. So that's a very important piece of it. Knowing what we want from our heart. And then the other piece, which is really important, is that in order to receive what you want, we can sometimes call
Mm-hmm.
this manifestation. You need to be relaxed so that that energy can flow through you, can come towards you, and it can materialize for you. So if you're very tense, think about it. You're very tense, like, oh, I don't want that. I don't want that person to come near me. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of that. And you shut life out. But if you're very
Mm-hmm.
relaxed, you're enjoying yourself, it's like, oh, yes, I love life. I'm going to let life in. And letting life in includes letting money in. They're all it's all part of the same thing. It's the same energy. So that's why it's so important to be relaxed so that you know what you want, and then to be
Mm-hmm.
relaxed so you receive what you want.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Sarah, because I'm very sure that a lot of people are, thinking right now about their perspective about money, especially the ones who will follow afterwards. I promoted our show in my university because I know that it will really help a lot of people, because I think it's sad that we're working so hard and yet we feel we deserve little from all
Yeah.
the hard, sincere effort that we're putting out there. And one of the things, Sarah, that I've noticed over the years is that when you do not state what you actually want in terms of value about money, one of the things that someone I deeply admire told me in the beginning of my career, whatever product or service you put out there, also put a price on the emotional value you put into the labor of having to come up with it. Because one of the things that that person mentioned to me, if you don't put value on it, and then things get tough in the middle of the situation, you bring out resentful statements either about the situation or the person you're working with. Please enlighten me. How does this actually affect particular situations? Because I noticed that what that person said to me, it's not just a personal experience for that person, but it happens a lot. A lot of people in the beginning of their transaction, they're happy that they have something, but it's true when you don't put a value on the emotional labor that you put into the work, whether it's a product or service, and things don't go very well because a lot of things can happen in the situation.
Yeah.
Somehow there's a resentment that's built up. So is this also part of your experience the last 30 years?
You know what I would say is that that emotion that you put into your product or your service is that's putting your heart into it. It's not just I'm going to create a thing. This is like a very ordinary thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to create the most beautiful thing or a thing that will work really well for people or will help people a lot. So you put your heart in it. And if you think about it, the products that we love or the services that we love are the ones where people have put their heart into it. There are products that we use that are, we just buy. We buy stuff and it says made in China on it very often, and it's just been manufactured and it's as cheap as you can possibly get it, and you don't feel the love in it and you don't feel the quality in it. You just buy the product and there's not much satisfaction in that. So I think that if we want to work aligned with our purpose and we want to receive good money for our work, we need to put our love and our emotion into the work that we're doing. And then, of course, we need to be paid for that as well, because we're making a better product and we're doing it with our heart. And the thing about that is then later, if things do go wrong, in whatever way, things can always go wrong in business, we have a habit of doing things well, of really caring about what we do, of caring about the people who we work with and the people who we serve. So we have habits that will serve us in difficult times as well as in good times. So to me, there's value in doing things well, in doing your work with love, that goes way beyond just the thing you make and also actually way beyond the price.
Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. And I want to share a personal experience as well because I came up with a book. It's called Monetize Metaphysics because, like what you mentioned earlier, a lot of people in the service industry, especially in terms of spirituality and metaphysics, a lot of us are awkward whether or not are we going to charge our energy exchange or not. And then uh, all sorts of things get actually framed. For example, I was part of a wellness center and we were all discussing, shall we call it an energy exchange price or a sacred investment, something like that, or a love offering. So, even those things, we find it funny now, but it does play a dynamic in your psyche
Yes.
as to whether or not you're going to get paid for it. Especially, I love what you mentioned earlier that we have habits that will serve us in the good times and in the limited times because that's how most people felt, especially during the announcement of lockdowns last year in my country and even up to now. So I love that you talked about habits because I truly believe that it's not the condition that will make you thrive, but it's a personal decision and your habits that will make you rise above circumstances. So thank you for bringing that up for discussion. And maybe you can share a thing or two about what habits do we need to stick on so that we can remain conscious and remain uplifted despite whatever limited financial situation most people feel are happening right now.
The habits that are recommended from my book and that I've found to be most effective might be surprising. One of them I've already mentioned a lot, which is the habit and the discipline to be relaxed about things. So even when things go wrong, how quickly can you relax? Because when you relax, you can find solutions much more easily. Everything is more peaceful and you don't create a drama out of it. Being relaxed, clearly, as I've already explained, works for money as well. And it's very funny because the first thing we do normally when anything happens is to get stressed or to get tense about it.
Yeah.
And so I had to train myself literally, even if I hurt myself, if I bump into the table or something and bruise myself, the first thing I will do is relax. Wherever it hurts, I relax there because guess what? It heals way more quickly. That's what I discovered. The same with money. If you find yourself in a position where you've got bills that you can't pay or financial pressures that you don't know how to meet, instead of getting worried and stressed about them, which is what most people's habit is, it really is important to relax and get that energy flowing. First of all, you'll make better decisions when you're relaxed. Secondly, the energy will flow better. Thirdly, everything is better when you're relaxed, even if it's a terrible situation. It's better when you're relaxed than when you're tense. So being tense and worried adds nothing. It just it drains your energy away. That's the first habit. So relaxation. The second habit is enjoyment. This is also a funny one. People don't connect money with enjoyment, but money connects itself with enjoyment. It kept on talking to me about enjoy your life, enjoy your work, enjoy yourself, enjoy what you're doing. And when we're enjoying, we're relaxed, we're happy, we're positive, we're open, we're really easily able to receive. We don't have that resistance and fight and tension in us. So enjoyment is really important. And then the other habits to build, and I think this is a much more challenging one, is the habit of love. How do I solve this problem with love? How do I talk to this very difficult person with love? How do I respond to that very hateful statement with love? Now, that's difficult. Then we can really talk about the real work of spirituality, but it's also the real work of money. That's the irony of it.
Thank you for sharing that, Sarah, because from our group, we always believe that, if you're blocking your capacity to demonstrate, there's also a forgiveness issue. I don't know how it is for you, but of course, if you say this to someone, to someone who's already very pressured, and then you're going to tell them that they need to forgive, their blood pressure rises.
Yeah, forgiveness is a really interesting thing. I actually teach quite a lot about forgiveness because it's so powerful. But I have found that it's very important to do forgiveness the right way. If you just try to forgive from your head, like, yeah, I know I need to forgive this person, you don't forgive with your heart, it doesn't have any power. I found that it's very important to find a way to forgive so that your forgiveness is from all of you. And then what happens is whatever was going on, whatever was triggering you or hurt you, that actually disappears. The whole drama and the emotional charge disappears, and you feel peace and gratitude even to the person that hurt you. And that's an extraordinary thing if you think about it, to feel gratitude and genuine forgiveness towards somebody who's hurt you because you recognize that in some way they've actually really helped you. That's a very beautiful thing to be able to do.
Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. It's an amazing experience for me, to have someone who's done her work for 30 years, because I love it when people put that kind of devotion into their work. Especially, I'm also a big believer that if you want to come up with something that's really worthwhile, there has to be love put into it. And for me, love put into it will get you out of your comfort zone. Sometimes it's gonna require you to work, maybe because I'm self-employed and that's why I think about it. For example, now because everything is done online, when I get a speaking engagement, even if it's wee hours in the morning, I take it because I feel that one, it's the value of service. And then I was thinking to myself, you know what? If there was no lockdown, you're still gonna go there at that particular time. So why are we thinking that we're stressing ourselves out right now when in fact if there was no lockdown and you had to travel and you had a speaking engagement, you will still have to adjust your body clock so that you can make it there at that time of whatever activity that they have, because apparently a lot of people right now are thinking twice if they're going to accept speaking engagements that are off hours or but I think right now you just really have to widen as well your perspective, because you know if there was no lockdown and you were invited for an event, a lot of those things will actually just be something that you would have adjusted to. What can you say about it?
Yeah, well, yes, and also people really, I think they really need anyone who can give a bit of a voice of calmness or hope or belief. So whatever we can do to help in that way is so important. And a little bit of sleep here or there is like, look, of course you need to look after yourself. We all need to look after ourselves and take care of ourselves and be a good example of that. And at the same time, we need to, like you said, be able to rise to challenges and challenge our own limits and our own constraints that we've placed on ourselves through our thinking, and say, oh, no, I can do that, or that's absolutely possible, rather than, oh, I'm afraid of this and I don't want to do that. And again, it's the difference between living with openness and a love for life, or are you going to live afraid of life and defending yourself against life? And they're very, very different ways of living.
Thank you for sharing that, Sarah, because I remember when I got my first job right after college, one of the things that I had to adjust was the sleeping thing. My shift was between 4 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Oh,
And because one of the things that I also made sure was what kind of self care can I do in terms of energetic work, because you're gonna have to make up for the lost sleep. That's ideal, especially you had history on Chinese medicine.
yes.
When it comes to the body clock, they're very much into it. So I know that I had to find a way to make sure that my vital organs, especially the ones that are compromised because of the lack of sleep, also had to be tended to. Because one of the things I want to get across my viewers as well, especially those who are working on shifting schedule, it's not just about going overtime because you're pressuring yourself to make more money, but I invite you, Sarah, to point out to our viewers how important it is to put in our consciousness that we can make a lot of money but not compromise the quality of our health. And if we have to do work like that, there are other options to get into so that they can also care for their bodies.
I meet a lot of people who've burnt out, and they burnt out because they needed or wanted to make money and they worked too hard and they didn't take care of themselves. That's the bottom line of it. It's really simple. And the thing about burning out is that it can take people years to recover. And it's happened because of ignorance. It's ignorance about energy, and it's also ignorance about money. And it's a kind of craziness that people get about money, thinking that money will be the answer to everything. Money like that destroys your health is not the answer to
Yes.
anything, because if you don't have health, you can't enjoy what you get with your money anyway. And this is so obvious. And it's amazing that as a society, we let ourselves ignore it. We have models, role models that teach us, and in school even, that teach us not to look after ourselves really well. But if you think about it, anyone who's been sick will know that once you're sick, life is not as enjoyable anymore. You can't do everything you want. You can't work in the way you want. You can't enjoy your money. So we need to get these things the right way around. And for me, the fundamental of that is learning about energy, learning how to take care of your life energy, because that's what makes you alive. And that's actually where your health comes from. When you take care of your energy, your health is good. And when you don't take care of your energy and your energy starts to get blocked and dirty, especially dirty, we don't know how to clean out our energy properly, then you start to get sick and your life doesn't feel good. You get much more emotional and life feels much more dramatic. So things go wrong, everything goes wrong, and it can be more traumatic as well. You can get physically sick. You have sick relationships, so your relationships are not satisfying and beautiful, and then you can have a sick relationship with money. So your health and well-being affects every area of your life. And the thing about it is that you are the only person who can actually take responsibility for that. You can go to a doctor if you get sick, and they may or may not be able to help you. We all know people who couldn't get help and people who could get help. But you're still responsible. You're responsible for your body, for which doctor you go to, for which treatment you take or don't take, for what research you do, for what options you go with. And I think that we've been taught somehow that health and well-being is in somebody else's hands, so we don't feel fully responsible. And then we end up feeling sick, and then it's like, I can blame my boss, I can blame my company, I can blame my doctor, I can blame my government. But actually, I think it's really important we recognize that you are the people who are responsible.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, because it's very important to get into our consciousness and get reminded that, even if I sleep late, I make sure that I do something that will, make that particular lost sleep. I take food supplements to help with the vital organs that are going to be compromised because of that sleep wake cycle that's not of the ideal time. And because here in the Philippines, it's a good thing if Filipinos are handing Australian account because we have the same time zone. But most of us, a lot of contact centers, which are from Europe and in the United States, are outsourced here, and a lot of millennials are actually working late night shifts. But I know that even if you work late night, it's so important to look after your health, and it's just so important to understand that your health is just equally important as the wealth that you're trying to make out of the work that you're creating. So,
Totally.
and another thing that I want to ask you, Sarah, because most of us, we attach the doing part into the earning the money, but the concept of allowing money to come to your space is also possible. And when I wasn't acquainted yet with metaphysical prosperity principles, I always thought that you have to work very hard for it. But once I learned how to flow money, especially, I'm not sure if you talk about tithing money, but it's one of the most life changing things that I've experienced. That when I started tithing my money, it didn't feel like I had to come up with all the things that I had to bring about in my life to feel complete and satisfied. So, what can you say about it? Because you're coming from Australia, and some of our communities also teach that principle of tithing or honoring our concept of source as the one that provides everything.
So the way I see it is that money needs to flow. If you think
Mm.
about it, when I pass money on to somebody else, whether I tithe or whether I pay them for something, that money then becomes useful to somebody else. I personally don't think it matters so much. I think it's up to you to choose whether tithing is your thing, or you're buying things that are useful for you, or you're investing and helping other people to create really great things. There are many different things you can do with your money. What I notice helps to create the flow is that the money is actually going to go somewhere. Now, when it goes somewhere, it may enrich you as well. It doesn't have to be like you get rid of it all. You can invest so that you make more money. That's absolutely legitimate. But when you have that sense of flow through your life, that's what seems to open the door to receiving more money as well. Unless you're very closed. If you're very closed to receiving, it doesn't work. I've met people who give everything away and don't receive. You need to have both doors open, so to speak. The giving it, shifting it out, sharing it, moving it on, and also the receiving it.
And thank you for sharing that, because one of my teachers and I were talking about this. It's completing the circuitry. You give something out and then you receive something back. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but from that teacher, I learned that you always use your right hand for giving, the left hand for receiving. And because it completes the circuitry in the heart, which is also the ideal chakra for promoting generosity, giving, receiving, being grateful, all the qualities of the heart. And it's amazing, Sarah, that you talk about love and you talk about money, and now we're bringing up the subject of the heart, because we know that if you don't have an empowering perspective, and if your perspective does not include money, love, and completing the circuitry of giving and receiving, what happens is the most polar opposite, which is having to fight for it instead of making money a pleasant experience. People are now having to wage wars, not literal wars, but even in, even just at home, it can be a situation that comes up. We're laughing now, but we know every now and then a household will get into this type of experience.
Yes, and if you think about it, somebody who is fighting or angry or worried or upset, they have an energy that pushes everybody away around them. You don't want to come close to them, but if somebody's really in love with their life, for example, they just love what they're doing, there's an attraction around that. We're naturally attracted to them. Money works the same way. Money is attracted towards love and generosity, and it's repelled by stress and tension and worry. So this connection between money and the heart and love and generosity and attraction, these are all things, and gratitude, of course, which is a very open-hearted experience, to feel grateful. These are all ways to help money flow in your life.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing it. And another thing that I want to bring up, because on the personal level, we know that we have money values. What's important to me may not be important to another person. And therefore, your spending patterns are very different. So, for example, in my frame of mind, if I'm in a relationship, and since I've always been self employed, it's a lot easier for me to feel love and affection when my partner is just supportive of what I'm doing. But for other people, their love language is different. And although we're talking about love, the money has to be part of the conversation, because honestly, Sarah, I think when couples don't talk about money in the beginning of the relationship, during the relationship, it's like they're always going to be in the dating process. It's not going to be a long term relationship, because it doesn't talk about things that will ground both of you.
Yeah.
So please share more to us why it's so important for couples to actually have, maybe not exactly the same values around money, but maybe a complementary experience. I don't know what you would call it, but we would like your perspective on it.
Well, if you think about it, money very much connects with values. We spend money on what we value. It's really as simple as that. You can look at what you spend your money on, and that will tell you a lot about what you value. And if you feel that you're spending things on what you don't value, then there's something that needs to change there. So your values are really important in your relationship with money, and they're really important in your relationship with a partner, because your relationship is formed around your values. And you don't need to have the same values. Some of the most creative relationships have different values that mesh together very well. So they're complementary, like you said. And that can be very creative if you respect the other person's values and they respect yours. A lot of this is about respect. If you don't respect the other person's values, then that's a recipe for disaster in a relationship. And the thing about money is that it's a very powerful way that you express your values. So if you don't talk about it and then you go and do things that you don't share with your partner, for example, and this is about how you express your values, that can create almost like a war between you. The secrets that people keep and the habits that they have that they don't share and the lies that they tell to themselves as well as to their partners, those are the things that drive people apart. Whereas if you can have openness and honesty and transparency in your relationship with money with your partner, you have the foundation for a relationship where you can solve problems and you can rise to challenges when they come up in your life. And you can create something beautiful with your relationship, which is what everybody would like to do.
Yes, and it's an important thing to bring to the table because a lot of us, we are motivated by the fact that, we may be working so hard, but at the end of the day, what makes it all worthwhile is because we know that when we earn any form of income, we also want to share it with a loved one. So, most of us, we don't just earn all that money just for our pure enjoyment. We want to be able to share it with loved ones. So why do we keep up with certain portions of work that aren't really that emotionally satisfying? Because we know after all that labor put into it, we feel that, you know what, it's a lot of devotion, but it's okay because I'm going to share the fruits of my labor to someone whom I feel is worth sharing it with. And if you don't feel that the person you're sharing it with is not worthy, that becomes another factor into why relationships will work or not. And this is why it's so important to be able to discuss about money freely,
Yep.
and especially talking about money in such a way that will eradicate what triggers both of you. Because I'm laughing
Yes.
now, but it's a reality.
Yes. And money is often the cause of the greatest stress in relationships and probably causes more relationships to break up, both personal and business. Will be issues and beliefs around money. So I don't think that any relationship can expect to have a completely easy time around money. There may be many things that you need to learn about each other and things you need to discuss and be forgiving of. And, there are all kinds of things we can do because money is such a strong topic, but it is central. You can't have a relationship without money. You also can't have a family without money. It costs money to have a family. So a family is like a little business, but we need to understand the flows of money through that family business. We need to be able to talk about these things and create a harmonious family life with a harmonious budget and a family economy. These are parts of being human, living a good human life, I reckon.
It's very important. And since we talked about intimate relationships and money, I know, Sarah, a lot of organizations as well. Every time I would talk to people, they would say, we're supposed to launch a project, and then the board actually decided to go somewhere else. So that's another thing. That's why money is so important to talk about. Because for me, when I think about money, I think about expanded freedom. You have more capacity to be free and to be joyful because you don't just compromise, because you know that if you can find a way to make it on your own, you're not dependent on a particular company, for example, because a lot of companies closed last year.
Yeah.
And if you have that particular habits in place that you talked about, like being able to relax with greater ease and being able to relax as quickly as possible in the middle of tension. And what can you say about people working with organizations, especially they have to deal with budgets of the organizations? What's the most ideal working relationship in that kind of circle?
Well, really, it's the same things. It is still ideal if you enjoy your work and if you respect your work and the people you work with, and if you love your work. And that's not always easy with some organizations. It's probably hard to love them. But if you're just working for money, if you're really honest, you're just doing it for the money. If you can recognize that money is an energy of love, you can feel truly grateful for the work that you're doing that's bringing you that energy. And the interesting thing is that the more grateful you feel, the more likely you are to find better work or a better job or a better company. So if you're in a company you really dislike or that's doing things that you don't believe in, that are not aligned with your values, but you feel you have to work because there's nothing else, even then, being grateful for what you're receiving will help you to get that next opportunity. Whereas if you're resentful or angry or you hate them, all these kinds of things, you tend to just have to stay there longer and longer and longer. It's a really interesting thing. We say what you resist persists. So if you really resist something, it's going to hang around in your life even longer. We say what you appreciate appreciates. It grows. So if you really appreciate something, that's going to grow.
For sharing it. And it's a beautiful thing that you talked about gratitude, because I love the way you talk about it. It's not dogmatic, it's just a shared universal value. And
Yeah.
I think it's so important to be able to affirm it and practice it. And I love that you talk about the more you do it, it actually increases the frequency of having more good to come into your life, whether it's a better job, a better company that's more aligned with your values. Because for me, Sarah, it's a lot easier for me to pick projects that I'm working on because I'm self employed. And there's a factor for me where I have this sweet spot where you talked about in your interview with Brandon and Jennifer Hill, which I do appreciate about what you mentioned, because one of the things that was in the topic for that day for discussion was, here you are, you're going to negotiate for what you think you're worth, and here's the thing that you have to pay for.
Yes.
And the amazing thing that you brought up in that conversation was, what if you're going to have to pay for something much bigger, but here is what you feel you're worthy of receiving? Please give us an example, and maybe something that we can just apply in our situation as of the moment.
Well, it's very, very common actually that there's something that you want that you can't afford at the moment. And what most people say is, oh, I really want that thing, but I can't afford it. And what that does with the energy of money is say, I really want it, but I can't afford it, so I can't have it, so it can't be delivered. And it's like asking for something and then refusing it. So if we can say, I'd really love to have that experience, people sometimes say, oh, I really want to buy a course, but I can't afford it. Or I want to go to this country or have this experience and I can't afford it. If you just say, I really would love to buy this course or go to this place or buy this for my children, and then just leave it. Don't say, but I can't afford it. Just leave it open that I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I might not be able to do it right now. That's fine, but I'm going to do it. Just that little thing enables you to stay open for you to receive that thing, rather than otherwise it's rather like ordering something online and then canceling the order. But if you just say, this is what I would really love, you leave that order open and the energy of money will find a way to deliver it to you. That's the extraordinary thing. And so many times I hear of people
Beautiful.
receiving money, receiving results that they didn't realize were going to come to them.
Yeah. And I love that you talked about openness, because there were certain things that I wanted to buy for myself, but instead of buying it for myself, someone just sent them to me. So is that also part of your teaching, Sarah, that you're supposed to allow in whatever way, shape, or form, or how the universe will bring it to us?
Absolutely. It's so often surprising how things get delivered to us. So we need to be very, very open.
Thank you for sharing that. And I want to reconcile what you were saying earlier. You would know and you would feel if whatever product or service that was brought to you was done with love or done with haste, just for the pure goal of manufacturing it. And there's also that feeling you get when something is made of love. And one of my favorite authors actually mentioned, he was saying, if you were just concerned about making sure that the quality of your service was rising to its optimum level, and you weren't really concerned about how the particular reward or the particular monetary thing is going to come to you, then more actually comes back to you. So what shall be our preoccupation? Shall we have a little diary stating there how much we expect from it, but not really be fixated on it has to come from this work, it has to come from this project? What can you say
Yes.
about?
Yeah, be very open always. If there is something you want, be very open as to where it might come from. Be grateful for everything you have. Enjoy what you're doing. Do what you do really well. Those are the things that make it easy for you to receive something. You don't need to do so much. You don't need to try really hard to make it happen. It's the allowing that makes it happen.
Yeah. Sarah, with your experience, I'm very sure that you have an insight as to why the concept of allowing is so difficult for a lot of people, including me. I think there are layers into this allowing thing.
Um, if you think back to school, you were never taught to allow or to relax. You were taught to do and to work hard and to strain at things. Even young children are very often taught to please their parents. Like you're always, if you watch a small child, you can see them trying to figure out what it is that people want from them and then performing to that. So I think we've been taught from a very, very early age not to allow things. It's not part of our culture. It's not part of the Christian culture or the Western or the Asian culture, particularly to allow. There are traditions there. There's in the Chinese Taoist, really traditional philosophy. There's a very beautiful philosophy of allowing. You get it. It shows up. But I just think it's been trained out of us, really. And it feels too easy. We've been taught to work hard, to delay gratification, and to suffer. And then good
Yeah.
things will come to you, or maybe you'll go to heaven when you die. And we're turning all of that around a bit at the moment. So, yeah.
And it's beautiful that you're here spreading this kind of enlightenment, because imagine 10,000 people joining your course. Your course is done online. I'm very happy for you and I'm very grateful for you, because although I'm here in the Philippines and I just heard about you through Jennifer Hill and Brandon Maslan, I feel that there's a part of me that totally resonates with what you were saying about money, to enjoy it, to allow it, because I also believe that, if you come from that space where you have allowed for money to come to you and through you, and coming from a place of enjoyment and finding a healthy balance wherein you're raising the quality of your product or service, then when you attract it and when you share it, joyfully with others. You don't share it with resentment.
Yes. Yeah. And you feel like a full human being then. You feel like that's what I'm here for. It feels right. And that's what's important for us.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sarah, for finding time with us. And I trust to have you again. We're coming up with a convention on balancing
Wonderful.
people, planet, and profit. I think you're
Beautiful.
going to be one of the a lot
Thank
of people are
you.
gonna need what you're sharing with your books. Thank you. So anyway, I know you've shared a lot, but here in the show, I always ask my guests if there is one perspective that you want for me and the rest of the viewers to focus on. What would that be?
I don't think that it's right to just give more and more and more stuff to fill up your mind. So I really would want to repeat the word relax about money. Try
Mm-hmm.
it, just try it. Just stop worrying and relax about money and see what happens. That's more powerful than filling up your mind with more and more and more strategies. Just relax.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sarah. And if people want to connect with you, where can they find you so
The easiest
they
place
can?
is the easiest place is to go to my website, which is sarahmccrum.com, sarahmccrum.com.
All right. Let me put it in the screen and let me know if this is right.
No, I'll write it for you.
Okay, and let me just flash it for our viewers to see. So, do you have any events coming up that they can probably take advantage of?
Yes, I almost always have events coming up. I do them really regularly. So the best thing to do if you're interested in having another experience, you can join a webinar. I do lots of free webinars and Q&As and things. If you go to my website and sign up for my blog, you will be informed about any events that are coming up. That's by far the easiest thing.
All right. Thank you so much, Sarah. And I know we'll keep in touch.
Yeah.
And I trust that you'll also get more clients through this feature interview because I know a lot of people are asking for this topic to be put in the show. I really enjoyed our time together.
And
And I'll
thank
see you
you
again
very
next
much.
time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome and have fun, Sarah. All right. Okay, so Satnam, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, here in the show, we're trying to expand our awareness, expand our perspective, and learn from different people, especially about money. It's something that I had to keep learning over and over again from many different teachers because I realized that whatever my personal experience was, it was just my experience. And if there was someone who was more empowered than me about the topic, I was always open to learning from them. So I trust that you'll be able to take notes from it, learn from it, visit Sarah's website, and if she has events, I encourage all of you to join her. So remember, here in perspective, we encourage you to put things in perspective because your perspective shapes your reality. Mabuhay, everyone, and have fun.